City Council meeting of September 7th to order. Mr. Art Herrera is going to be doing the invocation tonight from Transformation Community Church.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, everybody attending. What a way to meet everybody by losing my keys in the hallway. Yeah. Keep me in prayer because it's my wife's car. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for this time that we get to spend together doing city business on behalf of you and the city of Surprise and us residents. Holy Spirit, we invite you to be here. Give us illumination in our minds. Lord, you said in your word that my people perish for lack of knowledge. Lord, give us knowledge and let us foresee the future, the Bible says, that we see the future and we prepare for it. So, Holy Spirit, give us that wisdom and insight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Art. Good job. Okay, Sherry, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, you can. Mayor Hall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Duffy,
Here.
Councilmember Hastings,
Here.
Councilmember Remley,
Here.
Councilmember Judd,
Here.
Councilmember Klein,
Here.
Councilmember Winters.
Councilman Winters is excused.
Thank you.
Okay. Could you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And as such, it is time to shine a light on the nation's 600,000 young cancer survivors. And sadly, more than 1,900 children diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. each year. In the spirit of spreading hope and good wishes to the young cancer survivors and those still fighting, I proclaim September Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in Surprise. Accepting the proclamation tonight is Patty Luttrell, the Executive Director of Children Cancer Network. I use this one. Proclamation from the Office of the Mayor. Whereas childhood cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in children. And whereas 43 children per day, or 15,780 children annually, are diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. And whereas there are approximately 40,000 children on active treatment at any given time. And whereas the age of a cancer diagnosis in children is 8. That's the average age, compared to 65 for adults. And whereas 80% of childhood cancer patients are diagnosed late and with metastatic disease. And whereas 2/3 of all childhood cancer patients will experience chronic and even life-threatening secondary effects from toxic treatments like chemotherapy and radiation. And whereas 600,000 childhood cancer survivors in the United States are forced to live a new normal because of the disease and the toxicity of the treatments. And whereas in the last 20 years, very few new drugs have been approved by the FDA to treat childhood cancer, and specifically, whereas the National Cancer Institute recognizes the unique research needs of childhood cancer, and the associated need for increased funding to carry this out. And whereas approximately half of childhood cancer families report that the financial strain of the out-of-pocket expenses is considerable to severe. And whereas Children's Cancer Network and other nonprofits are helping Arizona children with cancer and their families cope through educational, emotional, and financial support. And whereas researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently, dedicating their expertise to treat and cure children with cancer. And whereas too many children are affected by this deadly disease, and more must be done to raise awareness and find a cure. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Skip Hall, Mayor of the City of Surprise, Arizona, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Dated this day, 7th of September. Patty, you want to say a few words? I think, Diane, you want to take a picture after she says a few words? Here you go.
Oh,
Go
okay,
ahead.
great. Well, Mayor, thank you so very much to you and the City Council. It means so much to these families to feel your support and to know that you're behind them. It's a tough road. The most common childhood cancer is leukemia, and treatment lasts 3 years. So it's a long time. It's a big chunk of their childhood. And we do everything we can to make a difference and support them. And now, not only do they feel the support of their friends and their families and the organizations, but also the City of Surprise. And we can't thank you enough for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty. We're going to sit.
It looks a little weird. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay. City manager report. Have you got anything, Diane?
Yes, sir. Briefly, we're here to welcome tonight. My pleasure to welcome Emma Horton. She's a senior at Shadow Ridge and a member of our Surprise Youth Council, and headed to college here pretty soon, San Jose State. So she's going to provide a brief update on what's happening with our youth council members. Go ahead, Emma.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Emma Horton, and this is my first year on the Surprise Youth Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Surprise Youth Council had 6 members participate in the Arizona League of Cities and Towns conference on September 1st, and I was one of the 6 that was chosen. We attended informational lectures and interacted with other youth councils. The best part of the conference for me was networking with other youth from different parts of Arizona and to learn more about how our generation must act to maintain dignity in a technologically changing world. Thank you, Vice Mayor Duffy and Councilmember Hastings, for taking the time to have lunch with us during our time there. The Surprise Youth Council are back to our regular schedule, holding meetings 2 times per month with a focus on developing our projects that we will be working on for the entire year. The Surprise Youth Justice Project, which holds teen court once a month, is currently accepting applications for new members for this program through September 13th. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the report, Mayor. Thank you.
All righty. City clerk, do you have a report, Sherry?
Yes, we have an item.
Okay.
The nominations committee held their meeting on August 26th. I'll go ahead and read the item. Consideration and action to approve appointment of Alan Meyer and Brenda Kiner to fill 2 vacancies on the City Audit Committee, both with a term expiration of June 30th, 2022, and Jared Holland to fill 1 vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission, term expiration of June 30th, 2024.
Great. Are they here?
They are here, and they know that as soon as they're approved, then we'll do the oath of office
Okay,
following.
super.
I move to approve the appointment of Alan Meyer and Brenda Kiner to fill 2 vacancies on the City Audit Committee, both with term expiration of 6/30/2022, and Jared Holland to fill 1 vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission, term expiration of 6/30/2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
That's a unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Great.
So I'll have all 3 of you come down to in front of the dais, so we'll do the oath of office.
Great. Raise her.
Okay, let's have you move a little bit this way. Okay, have you raise your right hand and you'll repeat after me. I
I,
state your name for the record.
Jacob Allen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the laws
and the laws
of the state of Arizona,
of the state of Arizona,
and that I will bear
and that I will bear
true faith
true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
and defend them
and defend them
against all enemies
against all enemies
whatsoever,
whatsoever,
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the position of,
of the position of
state the commission you'll be serving on.
Planning and Zoning Commission
Thank you. According to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations and
All
welcome.
right. Great. Councilman Remley wants to make a statement here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few things about these appointments. This group is one of the most qualified groups we've ever had come applying for positions on our commissions. One of them is the partner emeritus, a very large local firm, after having served with one of the big 8 firms. It was a big 8 firm at that time. And another of the applicants is a attorney who has many years in Flagstaff, who recently relocated. I believe Marley Park is where he's living now. And he also serves as a judge pro tem, so he's thought pretty highly of in his own profession. And I think these are going to be great additions to these 2 commissions that they're going on to. One of them is our audit committee, and one of them is our planning and zoning. Thank you all for
And
applying.
Mrs. Kiner, what's Mrs. Kiner's background?
What was that?
What is Brenda's background?
Well, if I remembered, I would have said, but totally qualified. Right, right.
That's a big deal.
I mean, just totally qualified. And, I'm so thankful that we have interested citizens in our community that really want to make our city better.
Yep.
And we couldn't have any finer people on our boards. And thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations. Okay, Sherry, is that all, or?
That is all, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak to us on a non-agendized item?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we got 22 items on the consent agenda. Is there anybody that would like to pull an item on the consent agenda for questions or comments? No? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
All right. We have one item in a public hearing. Could you read that item, please, Sherry?
Yes, that is number 24.
Yes, ma'am.
Presentation and discussion pertaining to the proposed annexation of Windstone Ranch North, case FS 21-209.
Welcome, Sergio.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Yeah, so this item before you is for the discussion of the proposed annexation for Windstone Ranch North. Just a little overview of where we're at in the process. So the intent to annex and the blank petition was presented to the City Council back in June. On that same hearing, City Council approved the resolution for that blank petition. So on August 17th, that blank petition was recorded So that began the 30-day waiting period in which the applicant cannot go out and seek to get the required signatures for this annexation. Now, state law requires that the city council holds a public hearing within the last 10 days of that 30-day waiting period. And that's where we're at tonight. So tonight's hearing is simply for discussion. There's no action required. It's just simply to obtain comments or questions from the commission or the public. So once that 30-day waiting period is over, the applicant has 1 year to collect all the necessary owner signatures to move on with the annexation. Once those signatures are obtained, then City Council will hear the final ordinance for the approval of that annexation. So Winston Ranch is just slightly under 20 acres. It's located east of 163rd Avenue, north of Happy Valley Road. It currently holds RU43 zoning in the county. Now, if the annexation were to be approved, the property will take city-like zoning of rural residential. Along with the annexation request, the applicant's also requesting a rezone from that RR to R1 under a separate zoning case, FS 21-208. Once again, this is all post annexation if that annexation is to be approved. So in this property, the applicant's proposing roughly 62 single-family lots. This is still going through final design review, so that may change a little bit. But as part of their rezone request, they are setting the maximum density at 3.12 dwelling units to the acre. There was a neighborhood outreach meeting back in May. The general comments and questions that came up from those residents in attendance were in regards to traffic in the area, drainage, and how the applicant proposes to buffer this development from the adjacent county parcels. The rezone was also heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission on July 15th, where they recommended approval to the City Council on the rezone. The rezone will most likely be heard by the City Council on the same night that the final annexation ordinance goes before you. So at this point, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, I just had one. Could you go back to the slide where you've got the lots laid out? Just curious, what is the blue? What are we doing there?
So the blue there, Mayor, is simply showing the current floodways or floodplains. That's all going to be taken care of through engineering.
Okay, so it'll
when
be
that comes in.
subterranean? Whatever.
That's still being worked out. Like I said, right now they're in for the annexation and the rezone. The engineering of the project, the lot layout, drainage, and so on is still being finalized.
Still being worked out, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, this is just for discussion. Does anybody from the public like to speak to us on this matter?
No, Mayor?
Okay. I don't see any questions, so, okay, so I
Thank
think
you.
we're good.
All right.
Yeah, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, item number 25.
Consideration and action pertaining to approval of a fiscal year 2022 annual agreement between the City of Surprise and the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, GPEC, for participation and support of regional economic development programs in the amount of $69,286.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Welcome, Janine.
Rarely do I get to present to you, so I'm excited to see you twice in a night. So I'm here on behalf of an annual contract that we participate in with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, otherwise known as GPEC. And this year it's in the amount of $69,286. Well, and the reason we're here, I'm always excited to bring this forward. Surprise has been a member for well over 30 years. We're there. What GPEC is it's a public-private partnership. So there are 22 cities that are members and more than 170 investors from the private sector. So a number of very high-quality companies from a variety of industries. And following Cintra's presentation a bit earlier from Westmark, I love that she categorized GPEC in the kind of the lead generation category, and I think that's very important to note. But I always say there are just so much more. So they do a lot to help businesses locate to the community, but in doing that, they've got a tremendous responsibility to elevate key marketing messages and brand our region. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Over the last 5 years, they've had tremendous success, and I just think it keeps getting better. They've regionally assisted the greater Phoenix market with more than 200 companies over the last 5 years, including 2 in the city of Surprise, representing 108 jobs and $24.3 million in capital investment. And I may just want to point out before I really roll into the presentation that Executive Vice President Brad Smith is here with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And the last time he was here, we were entertaining a company. So he's glad to be back. And throughout the presentation, if there are questions, I'm sure he'd be very happy to come up and address them if I'm unable to answer them, of course. And so I mentioned GPEC. Of course, we all think of them as the primary lead driver of our region, and that's absolutely the case. But in doing that, you need to build the region's identity and brand the region. And they provide a tremendous amount of services to us, even if they haven't brought the lead to the market. In fact, there's a Canadian company that I spoke with just last week, and I called GPEC and said, hey, they're interested in coming to Surprise, but they're also looking at Nashville and Dallas. Can you help me out with that? And so they ran an operational cost analysis that helped really compare our market versus other major markets. So that was really, really great. And they've done that a lot for us. They've done a lot of services like that. They also provide connectivity. So if we need somebody to help us figure out an issue with a client or get something going, they'll always be ready to help us. They're always guiding us in all of the communities and helping us drive kind of a speed to market approach. And as I mentioned, they're great with any level of economic impact analysis. I would put their research team against any in the country. They're just an amazing and well recognized internationally as a research competence. So as I mentioned, over 5 years, we've really seen a tremendous return on investment as a partner. So from a regional perspective, Surprise, we can calculate that with GPEC's support, the annual contract has yielded a $27 to 1 return on investment for our community. And if we combine sort of the indirect metrics, so third-party people that, let's say they're beyond the direct hires, there are indirect hires that happen because of direct hires. So it's kind of an analysis that happens. So it's even greater if we include indirect indicators. So we can track 117.5 million in new Surprise consumer spending as a result of our relationship with GPEC, and an estimated 8.2 million over 5 years in the direct city revenues, which is tremendous. Regionally, even if they're not in Surprise, if they're within the commute shed, we can track that there are more than 2,000 Surprise jobs that have been yielded because of our relationship over the last 5 years with GPEC. So, and as you can see, COVID has not slowed us down. The lead in deal flow and site visits have continued to stay strong, and we, in fact, had a bit of an uptick last year in terms of interest. And the formula for how we invest in GPEC, it's unanimous. It's unilateral again with all of the other communities. So 22 communities have a population count, and we pay them on a per capita basis. So this year, of course, the contract is $69,286, and if we keep growing, this is what happens. But it's well worth the expense, and in fact, it's an investment, I would say, because it's a 27 to 1 return on investment. I always want to point out too, the engagement has been great. We get 2 appointments because of our population number. So on the board, we're represented at the board level and the executive committee by Chet Kaiser, who's with Ottawa University, but formerly with Iris USA, as well as Scott Phillips, who's the managing partner, one of the managing partners of Carefree Partners. So I always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So GPEC is a great way for us to be engaged in the region and be at the table. And just a few kind of parting thoughts. Over 10 years, we've really yielded some tremendous quality investments in the community that we can really tip our hat and attribute to our relationship with GPEC. And with that, I'd be very happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, Councilwoman Klein.
Another great presentation, Janine. Thank you very much for everything that you provide to us. Taking a look at the per capita, and since that's based on last year's numbers, looking at it on this year's numbers, it's even less. We're talking about less than 50 cents per capita for everything that we do in the community and how that investment in our community supports what we want to accomplish here in Surprise. So I just wanted to thank you for a great presentation, and I've been on a number of the GPAC Zoom meetings or whatever we're calling them this time. So I just wanted to say that your department does a great job, and I know these folks are really working well with you to help us bring more businesses that we want here to Surprise. So thank you very much.
Councilmember.
All righty. I don't see any other questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 agreement with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council in an amount not to exceed $69,286.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
All right, item number 26.
Consideration and action pertaining to the approval of the preliminary plat entitled Unit H Phase 3 Toll at Prasada, approximately 13.587 acre property generally located west of Cotton Lane between Cactus Road and Peoria Avenue, case FS 21-080.
Welcome,
Mayor,
Chris.
members of the commission or council, good evening once again. Before we start, I just want to take a quick moment and introduce you to one of our newest members of community development, Trevor Fleetham. He's a planner too. We were able to steal him away from the town of Payson. He worked there for 7 years, most recently in the town manager's office. He's a graduate of ASU. We won't hold that against him. So he's doing a fantastic job. We're very excited to have him here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Trevor.
Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you.
Great.
We left the stuff by the way. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have another unit of Toll at Prasada, also known as Sterling Grove, and this will be Unit H. So this unit is located towards the south end of the development, just along the golf course. As you can see, there's frontage along the south side of the subdivision to the golf course, and then along their main thoroughfare there on the north end. And this is the vicinity within the development as a whole. This subdivision has 5 different lot categories. The lot category C, they're 70-foot wide. 2 versions of their D1 category, the 60-foot wide and the 50-foot wide. Their wide, shallow, 105-foot wide D2 lot category, as well as their 5-pack under lot category E. Here you can see the breakdown of those lot categories within the subdivision. As you can see, the D1 lot category is the majority of it, but there's some diversity amongst the plat as a whole. Main egress is along Haley Avenue there on the west end, but there's also an emergency egress over there on the eastern portion of the plat. The landscaping is the subdivision is well landscaped, and it's per the Prasada PAD as well as the municipal code. And as you can see, the wall plan here, there's the view fence along the golf course there on the southern end. and is consistent with the rest of the development. This is the kind of blow up of that concept plan to see a colorized version of it. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, subject to stipulations A through C, as outlined in the staff report. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Great. Is there any questions? I don't see any questions from the council. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So I move to approve the preliminary plat entitled Unit H, Phase 3 Tola Prasada, subject to stipulations A through C as memorialized in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote. All right, thank you. Thank you, Trevor. Okay, item number 27.
Presentation and discussion pertaining to an update of the city's drought preparedness plan.
Hey, Mike.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. As Sherry mentioned, the purpose of this presentation is to present and discuss an update to our drought preparedness plan, also referred to as our community drought plan. And as you know, we are in the process of updating our water resource master plan, and the drought preparedness plan is also an integral component of that update and that planning effort as well. Where we last left off with our planning effort associated with the water resource master plan was we heard from board member Lisa Atkins from the CAP back in late April. Board member Atkins shared with us about our CAP allocation via CAP 101 type discussion. She also mentioned the potential of us moving into a Tier 1 shortage declaration in January of 2022. And since then, on August 16th, the Bureau of Reclamation has confirmed that we'll be moving into there. So what that means for Surprise, as you already know, it's going to be enhanced education and outreach. We're not going to be seeing any shortage of our supplies at all. And so we'll have a clearer picture of how we're looking for the calendar year 2023 water year later on in 2022. So we'll be back in April, likely with Lisa, to report back on that. So getting to the drought preparedness plan. So what is a drought preparedness plan? Quite simply, it is a document or a planning effort that seeks to protect our residents and our water supplies from threats, namely drought in this case. The drought preparedness plan is mandated by the Arizona Department of Water Resources. We currently have a drought preparedness plan in place. It was adopted in 2008, and ADWR requires that that plan be updated every 5 years. So since 2008, we really submitted it as is, but we're in a different state of affairs than we were back in 2008, so we thought it was wise that we dust it off and make sure that it's relevant and current, and also reflects other planning initiatives. But really the same strategy is going to be upheld. We want it to be simple, we want it to be concise, we want it to be digestible. And we'll get into what some of those specific items are. So again, we're going to use the existing framework. The document itself is 10 pages long. It's concise. We're going to be focusing on education and preparedness and outreach. And really, it's a new place for us to document our water conservation strategies that we've been developing over the last 2 or 3 years. The other unique thing about the drought preparedness plan is it's citywide. It's not just pertinent to our water service area. So at the onset of this, we worked very closely with EBCOR Water, Liberty Utilities, Saguaro Wicker, Saguaro View, because we may be pushing water conservation efforts and initiatives in their water service area. They were all extremely supportive and collaborative in this initiative. We also wanted to pay very close attention to what other cities are doing. So all these other cities have drought preparedness plans. We created a workbook with all of their other responses and measures that we'll get into in just a second. So our goal was to make sure we weren't on the bench, not doing enough, and we weren't out on a limb doing too much or being too aggressive. We wanted to be really kind of with the pack, because if Avondale closes splash pads, but they're open in Surprise, or EBCOR is requiring specific days a week watering, and why isn't Surprise doing that? We wanted it to be very regional. The authority to enact various stages of this will still remain with the city manager or his or her designee. And obviously, we'll be bringing those kind of recommendations back to the council for their information. And really, the biggest updates associated with this drought plan are associated with the triggers. What will allow us to move into these various water conservation measures and demand management measures? So specifically, our current drought plan only acknowledges groundwater levels. And the good news is our water elevations and our aquifer have been rising because we've been actively recharging in this area for 20 years. So, perhaps that's not indicative of us being in a water crisis. The other item is, the Colorado River status is really what us as water managers and water planners are using is sort of the pulse of where we're going. And so we've added that as a trigger to enacting various drought measures in response to changes in groundwater level or statuses of the Colorado River. But really, the emphasis is communication, the use of outdoor water. That's 48% of our water demand as a city is used outdoors. And then obviously the triggers and the measures, which we'll get into here. So these are the triggers. And again, this is a draft document, certainly open to your comments or suggestions. Currently, there's only 4 triggers in the plan. We're proposing a stage 0 trigger. We live in the desert. We've been in an active drought since 1999. So stage 0 is just a constant state of conservation. Stage 1 would be one of the following. Reductions to lower basin users due to a declared shortage on the river. So that would be where we're heading in January, or reductions in groundwater level. And so as we move through the stages, it's deepening cuts to the cap or worsening elevations to our groundwater levels. And stage 4 there is kind of Armageddon, martial law. We're hopeful that we never get there, but there is a plan in place via the use of emergency water supplies, and we have interconnect agreements between EBCOR and El Mirage and Liberty Utilities, should we ever have to get there. Also identified here in the triggers are the use of beacon wells. So as a utility, we operate 18 service area wells. We've identified 4 wells that are really indicative of our aquifer health. So we would measure those wells to, let them be the basis for our decision-making process for, groundwater level triggers. All right, so here are the municipal responses. So this is what we would do should we encounter the need to enact one of the triggers. So a couple things to point out. At the top right there is the legend that identifies, what those things mean: require, prohibit, limit. And also, you notice it's referenced as response options. We can identify things that we may want to enact and things that we don't want to enact. So I think this document can be very fluid and updated as necessary. But a couple items I want to highlight here. So this is what these would be the municipal responses. This would be the city tightening our belt in terms of water use. So letter A there, public information awareness campaign. Currently us as a utility provider and as a city, we don't really share with the public, what we are doing to save water. A good example of this is going to be the turf removal or reduction program along Bell Road. We want to practice what we preach with that kind of stuff. Letter F there, limit use of splash pads. So in conservation with, or coordination with Holly and our Parks and Rec team, perhaps in the stage 1 limit would mean changing the hours of our splash pad or switching out the splash pad toys to reduce the amount of water. But really, these are the tables that we will use in the event that we move into the various stages. Any questions or thoughts before I move on to the residential responses?
Councilman Judd?
Thank you, Mayor. So the splash pads, we recycle that water? I mean, it goes into a system and goes back into our water treatment program?
At the Hollyhock Pool, we do, because the splash pad uses the pool system to filter it and chlorinate it. But at our Dick McComb Park and Veramonte Park, it's a one-time use on into the sewer system.
And so we're discharging into the sewer system.
Correct.
And so it's going to our water treatment facility.
Right.
So we're recovering that water.
Mostly, there's some evaporation and loss, but yes, for the most part, it is recaptured.
Okay. And so, I mean, our biggest conservation efforts would go towards the outdoor watering and things water we can't recapture, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So that 48% that we lose back to our sewer.
So how much water do we lose from splash pads?
I don't know that.
It doesn't seem like it'd be much if we're recovering most of that water.
Right. And
It'd be akin to flushing the toilet or taking a shower, right? As opposed to watering a big lawn.
Exactly. And I think that, perhaps if we were to get into a stage 2 where we had to identify, well, what exactly does limit mean? We could identify if it's even worth it, or perhaps that's one of the options that we skip over as it relates to enacting that for the municipal responses.
Okay. I want to see, well, I just want to see us enacting things that have a real effect, not just a perceived effect, right?
Yeah, and I think, so letter C, for instance, again, we as a city irrigate probably over 500 acres of turf in our Parks and Rec department. So, in conversations with Holly and her team, perhaps we look at, doing water audits and water budgets and rotating, where we're overseeding. That's the kind of stuff that's really going to move the needle, as you're
Right.
referring to, and saving the water that's lost to our sewer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Klein.
Hi, Mike. You knew I was going to ask this question, right? Turf reduction on Bell Road, my favorite topic since before I was on council. Do we have an estimated plan of presentation of that process? Or, because we're going to get to Tier 1 come January. So is that something that we'll be getting a workshop on, or that you'll be presenting to us at a future date?
Yes, Mayor, Councilwoman Klein, our Public Works team is hard at work on that. And I think the intent is to bring back the various options associated with what the medians could look like
Okay.
at a council meeting or a council work session very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great. Councilman Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, Mike. If you would, could you go back to that first slide that showed the levels at the lake? There
Absolutely.
you go. Now, at 35%, that's the number we've been hearing on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the alert was clicked on. And this is talking about 32%. So is it 32% we're really at now?
Mayor, Councilman Remley, yes. So as of August 16th, that is the elevation of Lake Mead.
So we're definitely in Tier 1 already and heading to Tier 2. So when we're looking at this chart, we need to be looking at Tier 2 and what those requirements are?
Potentially. We're very optimistic for a great winter in Colorado. And, we'll be a lot wiser about the outlook of the results of the 24-month
Well, we know it
study.
didn't snow much up there this winter, so, yeah. Okay, so now when we go over to that other chart though, what is the likelihood, since we're already below Tier 1, that would mean we're gonna be in Tier 1 for a while, even if we're optimistic, right?
Correct.
And if things don't turn out quite so optimistic, we're in Tier 2.
That's correct. But
Okay.
again, as a municipal water provider, we have a municipal and industrial subcontract on the river, and we wouldn't see an actual reduction until a 2B status. And there are provisions in place at the state to what they're calling firming that water.
So how does Tier 1, Tier 2 relate to Stage 0, Stage 1, and Stage 2 on this chart?
Sure. So we meet the criteria currently for Stage 1 as it sits right now with moving into Stage 1. So we would just be enacting enhanced education and outreach as part of that
Tier
process.
1 is Stage 1?
Correct.
Okay.
Stage 2, though, it says cap reductions to municipal priority subcontracts. We wouldn't see that until a 2B declaration. So it's likely we have 2 more cycles on the river or 2 more water years before we would slide into a Stage 2B, or excuse me,
Okay.
Stage 2.
Okay, we're just trying to
Yeah.
put the apples and apples beside each other. Okay.
Yeah, but again, it's important to note that, our water portfolio is sound and, is very resilient, as we've talked about as part of our water resource master planning update initiatives. Okay, so we went through the municipal responses, a few examples. Our residential responses. So letter A has really been the bread and butter of what our water conservation program has been founded on, reaching residents to let them know how to use water wisely, indoors and outdoors. So our foot's still on the gas with that. We're pushing hard with that. Something that would be new, that may be, different or perhaps a little bit uncomfortable would be letter D, limit, prohibit new sod, overseeding, and/or landscaping. And so the thoughts of enforcing that or encouraging that are kind of cumbersome, but in coordination with Chris Boyd and his team, the buildup to that could potentially be, LDO modifications, or perhaps that's only associated with new developments, or perhaps we coordinate closely with the homeowners associations to get them involved with how to better regulate, some of their own homeowners. So yeah, those are just a couple examples of what the stage 0 and stage 1 entail. Any thoughts on the residential responses to stage 0, stage 1? Okay.
Looks good.
So moving into non-residential, and this is mainly HOA and commercial. HOAs account for our largest water users as a city. Currently, letter A as an example, we do not have outreach focused solely on commercial or HOA accounts. That's all about to change. In the next month or two, we're going to be reaching out directly to all of our HOAs and to all of our large commercial accounts, depending on meter size, to do focused outreach and to let them know about our rebate programs and really to take a proactive look at where they're irrigating and just to make sure that it's the best use of our water. And our HOAs have been tremendous partners, and they're interested because this has financial ramifications. All right, so the teeth associated with, should we have to enforce any of this, currently lives within our city code. As you can see there in bold, the drought plan shall be reviewed and updated as necessary. And there is a, I guess, progressive corrective scale associated with how this would be enforced from civil to criminal, should that ever need to be. But our intent, again, is education and outreach. So next steps, we hope to finalize soliciting feedback on the drought preparedness plan update. We're going to be submitting the document to the Arizona Department of Water Resources for their feedback and thoughts. Our hope is to provide this document to council for acceptance sometime this calendar year. And then the potential of transitioning to stage 1 on January 1st, 2022. And again, stage 1 is increased outreach and implementing conservation strategies that previously didn't have the resources to execute. And again, we'll be back as it relates to our water resource master plan efforts sometime later in 2021 to talk about a future tech memo. So with that, I'll take any comments or questions.
Vice Mayor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is more of a hypothetical. So before I get the faint, we can't afford it from the sideline, at what point do you kind of start talking to, Parks and Rec or something like that about changing the field to turf? Have you had any of those discussions? Not saying you have to do it, so calm down.
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor Duffy, we have. There's a large regional park that's planned to be located in our SPA3 region, 25 acres of turf. And so we've had that conversation about it. And so right now, and those conversations have been very well received by our friends in Parks and Rec. And the thought is, in active recreation areas where parents and people are going to be sitting on an artificial turf field, we just have to start associating artificial turf with shade structures. They kind of just have to be synonymous. Also, just being more cognizant about not placing real grass in unprogrammed areas that's just never going to be enjoyed, and really making that strategic. So, for instance, that 25-acre park, perhaps you focus that 8 acres of real grass, on the soccer field, and then everywhere else where you want aesthetics or just passive recreation could potentially be that artificial. But I think the key to making artificial go is going to be associating it with shade.
Because it's too hot to.
Yes.
So how does, have you heard from Ottawa how that works with their football field? Because I've never heard anyone say that's too hot.
I haven't heard directly. I know that when we worked with them to build it, we installed the water cannons, and I know that they use them on occasion to, settle the sub base down and cool it off.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Councilwoman Klein.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try to say that more often. Thank you, Mayor. Some of the locations I've been trying to observe locally, whether they're city locations or other business locations, sometimes the water overspray can be an issue, where either the water is running too long or the heads of the sprinklers are not correlated to the space in which they should be spraying. So is that something that would be part of this, both for Parks and Recs and city properties, and maybe recommendations to other commercial properties where we could look at reducing the amount of water that's going out onto the sidewalk and into the park or into the driveways and things like that?
Mayor, Councilwoman Klein, yeah, absolutely. One of the measures that was listed on the non-residential slide was focused solely on, water loss and water overspray. So that's one of our water conservation strategies this year is to, work with those property owners, just make them more aware of how they're irrigating.
Okay, and I have a second question. On residential properties, pardon me, one of the things that the City of Surprise does that I think is really great is they have kind of a flag that if all of a sudden there's a leak that the homeowner is unaware of, it sets off I don't want to say like an alarm, but a flag so that the homeowner can be contacted. A lot of the properties here have their pipes are under slab, so they don't always know when they have a leak until it's like, a couple $100s worth of water bill. To my understanding, and I could be wrong, EPCOR does not provide that service at this time. Is that something that could be part of our coordinated effort with them to provide that same service in the EPCOR areas or in the El Mirage areas where that service isn't yet available?
Mayor, Councilwoman Klein, yeah, absolutely. Lee and I have quarterly meetings with EBCOR, and it's an automated water meter infrastructure AMI switch out is definitely on their horizon that will give them that benefit. And speaking of that, our AMI switch out has proven to be one of our strongest and most beneficial right now water conservation tools. Andrea and her team in utility billing are tremendous, meeting with our residents, helping them figure out where the leaks are coming from. And we'll come back with the data someday, but I think last calendar year, in the first year, they had saved about 18 million gallons of water based on leaks detected. So it's incredible.
Thank you. And I know the people in District 2 would love to have that. It's just not available right now. So please twist an arm to
Okay.
the EPCOR guys if you have a chance. But thank you.
I agree. Councilman Judd.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the bigger water users would be potentially future development, future industrial development. So I know we have some limits on how much water any particular business can use, right? We have some sort of metric on that. Is that something we're also reviewing as part of our drought preparedness plan?
Not, Mayor, Councilman Judd, not directly. The way that we do the checks and balances associated with whether or not we can afford an industrial project relate back to our water master plan. So every parcel of industrial space in our water service area has a planned demand associated with it. For instance, it's 2,000 gallons per acre per day. And so if Janine or Mike Hoover send us over an RFI and it's over that, we then begin to analyze, okay, can they offset some of their potable demand with reclaimed water? Okay, if that's still a no, we're not quite there yet. We'll then look at what was planned for all the rest of the industrial park, and are those existing water meters using what we thought they were going to use? And can we take that demand and put it towards this industrial project specifically? And if the answer is still, it's still going to be over, and then that becomes a policy decision on, okay, perhaps we take away what we can afford in water for some of the other industrial parcels in the industrial park.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep.
That's a good question and a good answer.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's all we got. This is for discussion and questions only,
sir.
so there's no voting. So thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome.
For the presentation. Okay, so we've got an executive session, so I will entertain a motion to recess into executive session. Oh, yeah, let's do that first. Are there any future agenda items that anybody would like to put on? If not, okay, let's do council reports. How about you, Councilwoman Klein?
Oh, fine. You always keep telling me when I'm not ready. I was going to make a list of everything I did this last month, but it's too long. I will say that I do have 2 meetings this month. The meeting in person for Sun City Grand will be, to look at my calendar so that Chris doesn't tell me I'm on the wrong month, will be Monday the make sure I'm on the right month. Monday the 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Pima Room.
September 24th?
Sorry, September 27th.
Wasn't me.
That's right, okay.
24th will be my in-person meeting for Arizona Traditions at 10 a.m. from 10 to 12 in the ballroom. We had so many people show up last month that we almost exceeded capacity. And so I really think that's because Jackie brought coffee and donuts. So we'll be having coffee and donuts again for that meeting. So I do have those 2 meetings scheduled for this month.
Great, great. Councilman Judd.
Thank you, Mayor. We were all at League of Cities this last week, and it was really interesting meeting elected officials from all different cities, larger and smaller than ours, and just seeing how some of their problems compared to our problems. And a lot of them were similar. A lot of people looking for town managers. I host 2 meet and greets a month. One of them I partner with Vice Mayor Duffy, and that's usually the first Saturday of the month at Spencer's Place. Next month, it'll be the second Saturday, so we can make space or make time for the post office christening, so to speak. They're renaming the post office. And then the second meet and greet is usually the 4th Wednesday of the month, normally at Freddy's. So I encourage you to come out there and give us a hard time. Thank you.
The renaming of the post office is to honor Mark Lee,
Yes.
the first CO killed in Iraq.
Yes.
And Debbie, his mother, lives here in Surprise. She's quite the lady. Okay, Vice Mayor Judd, or Vice Mayor Duffy, as I'm looking right at you.
We look alike? We're almost there.
You got more hair.
So like Councilman Judd touched on, we all went to the league. It's good to finally see everybody. It's been a long time since I've seen some of those elected officials. It's good to network. And then some of the topics were pretty good. And then the meet and greet is actually going really well. The turnout's getting really well. I think we might be outgrowing our area. So next month, October 9th, we're hoping by then the mornings will be cool, so we'll be outside, but still go in and purchase something from Spencer's Place. Don't just come and yell at me and then leave.
Good idea.
At least go in and help them out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Very good. Councilman Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, this last 2 weeks was really, really interesting. The League of Cities and Towns for Arizona, this conference that we go to every year is really, really important to keep us up to date on what's going on within the state and within the issues that we're all concerned with. I think the number one issue, if there was one this year, was water. As you can imagine from the presentation that we just had, water is a really big deal because that is the limiting factor for Arizona, if there is one. And the growth that we're experiencing today and will be experiencing in the future is incredible, incredible. So if we care about this stuff, then our future will be pretty bright around here. But if we don't care about this stuff, then we're limiting what we can become. My meeting, just like Councilman Judd, is on the 4th Wednesday of every month, and ironically at about the same time too. So he has his over at Freddy's, is that right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, usually over at Freddy's where you can get a steak burger, and mine is over at Hollyhock where you can get free cookies.
Ooh. I'll come crash your party one of these times.
We're going to do something again this year that we did last year that was really successful. The education of our youth is, I think, really important to all of us, and it starts with being able to read. And Hollyhock Library, last year, we just got the green light for Hollyhock Library to be open 6 days a week like the other libraries. And so we had 635 kids signed up for library cards last year using a library card sign-up drive. And the supervisor of the library this year is going to do the same thing and go around to the schools that serve that area and give those kids in the OTS a shot at learning better for reading and getting into a library for a change. And I understand they're going to be rotating the stock and stuff like they haven't done in the past, and it's going to make it a lot more interesting. One more thing I do want to point out is, one of the big problems with the COVID and getting back to employment again is it's so darn expensive for childcare. We have after-school care over there at the Hollyhock. I think there's about a dozen kids. And before and after school care over at the Hollyhock Senior Center is available every day. And so if you're watching this and you want to check it out, go over there some evening after school gets out and see what's going on. And they've got quite a program going. So one more thing, as long as I'm talking, politician, what can I tell you? The senior center itself is back in full operation. They have a great lunch every day. The bingo on Friday, and the people arrive about an hour and a half early because this is big business, man. Big money over there for bingo. And last I knew, we had about 900 seniors are members. It is amazing when I have some of my meetings and somebody shows up that hasn't been there before, and I show them around the facility and the things that are available to seniors there for a very nominal cost. They go, wow, how come I didn't know this was here? So I wanted to mention at this meeting, if you're a senior out there, you really ought to check out becoming a member of the senior club. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, thanks to everybody who came out to the City Council meeting tonight. We appreciate you being here, and congratulations to our new commission members. I see you stuck it out. Thanks for hanging out with us. First thing I'd like to do is we had a Phoenix firefighter pass away last night after a battle with COVID-19, Miguel Angulo. So that's obviously really tough for him or for his family right now, and so please keep him in your prayers. I get a lot of questions about City Center. I had a chance to meet with Scott Phillips over the last couple weeks about speeding up City Center plans. There are quite a few plans moving forward right now. Without getting into it too much, most of them are residential, and now residential doesn't excite people as much as commercial does, but it is the first step in moving in a direction where we can finally get some stuff to fill out this dirt that we have here in City Center. So looking forward to not only some stuff starting, but also the speeding up of the City Center plans potentially. So other than that, I attended the League of Cities. It was great to network and meet with elected officials and learn some things from some people who have been in office a little bit longer than myself. We had the chance to attend an Ottawa football game on Saturday, which is a pretty neat experience. Mayor did the coin toss, and Ottawa won by about 80 points. I'm not exaggerating, it was by a lot. I think they're ranked second in their division and 23rd in the country, so keep an eye on them. And I think the mayor will probably touch on it, but we do have a 9/11 remembrance ceremony this Saturday, and that'll be taking place at 8:30 in the morning. Chief Pena, Chief Abbott, and the mayor are going to be speaking, and so to honor that and just to create enough time because I would like to attend, my meet and greet is normally 9 to 11. I'm going to go ahead and move that to 10 to 12 at the same location at Chef Peter's Bistro. So my meet and greet will be 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Chef Peter's this Saturday. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Well, since Councilman Hastings covered the remembrance ceremony, I don't have anything. Except to tell you that it's in the central outdoor courtyard, City Hall here. Okay, and it's going to start at 8:30 on Saturday morning. So love to have you all come. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recess to executive session.
I move to recess to executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're in recess. Okay, we're back from recess in this regular council meeting on September 7th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
Wow.